Homeownership. It appears to be a goal of many individuals in the United States and across the world. And why not, right? Owning your own plot of land, owning where you live just makes sense financially in most cases. But actually not all cases. The question is, which cases are the best cases for you to own a home versus renting, for example? And what is the metric that you should take into account when you're deciding whether or not I should own or whether I should rent? Let's dive into that in this video. Derek West for Finance Squared. Like, subscribe, click the notification bell. Homeownership is a dream for many. I'm sure you know there's all kinds of commercials out there, and the culture is just saturated with the idea that owning your own home is the way to go. And in all honesty, I'm not going to argue against that per se. I have a personal opinion on that, but in most cases, owning your own home makes a lot of sense. There are some scenarios, however, where it might not be the right financial decision. Let's dive into the question of when does it make sense to own a home versus renting. Let's get down to the brass tacks, right? Everybody has to live somewhere. And if you're living in a place that's owned by somebody else, you, sir, madam, you're a renter. You pay a monthly fee to a landlord for the right to live in the property for a period of time. Now, this covers your living expenses. You have a roof over your head. You have a place to lay your hat. You have somewhere to watch Netflix and chill. But you're not building any equity. And by equity, I mean you're not owning any part of the domicile with which you live, which means to a lot of folks that you're throwing away your money by renting versus owning. And then on the other hand, when you own your own home, your monthly payments go towards paying off your mortgage. A mortgage is a type of bond that banks and other financial institutions give to you specifically for the purpose of owning your own home. But let's not forget that you're paying your property taxes, you're paying your insurance, and you're also paying any homeowner association fees, maintenance costs, other fees and costs that are associated with home ownership. But there's a big upside. You're building equity. And equity is really, in many ways, simply a savings account or the amount of money that you agreed to pay the bank to own this home. But one of the key things that really drives home ownership is the prospect that your home, its value could increase over time, providing not just equity on the amount that you agreed to pay the bank, but a return on that investment, so that when you flip that home, you get more than you paid for when you initially agreed to owe that bank that money for that mortgage. Seems like all upside, right? But there are cases when it doesn't really make financial sense to own a home versus renting. We all know that not all houses go up in value all the time. As a matter of fact, there was a big financial crisis it's going on 15 years now or more, 2008, 2009 timeframe, where houses went down in value. That seems to be the exception and not the rule. But there are instances where home values do not always go up. As a matter of fact, one of the drivers for that economic phenomenon was that home values dropped so much on average that homeowners were what's called underwater in their mortgages, i.e. the value of their home was worth less than what they agreed to pay for the mortgage. Quick example, if a homeowner agreed to pay $250,000 in the mortgage in total, during that crisis, the home value plummeted. Home values plummeted to the point where some houses, in this particular example, the $250,000 house, was only valued at, let's say, $220,000 or maybe even $200,000. The person was still paying the mortgage. They realized, well, I'm going to pay $250,000 plus interest, plus fees, plus HOA expenses, etc. And what I'm getting out of that is an asset that's worth less than $250,000. And what a lot of people didn't realize is that if I simply held the asset for a period of time, in most cases, the value would have gone back up and you would have been made whole. What it pointed out, and what a lot of people have forgotten since then, is that, houses don't always rise in value, even if it does rise in value. A lot of the times, you're not really going to be paying what you're getting out of that investment. It's not necessarily going to be what you're getting out of that investment is not necessarily going to be a profit, because you still have to count in maintenance, realtor fees, etc. All the stuff that you pay consistently over time. Does all of that add up to the amount of money that you put down or agreed to pay in the mortgage? But even more important and more towards the topic of this video is that when you own your own home, the big thing that you're paying is interest on your mortgage. You're also paying taxes, you're also paying fees, etc. All those things, they're not part of the equity with which you put into the home. So the real answer of when does it make sense to rent versus to own is not necessarily if the amount that you're paying in monthly rent is more than the amount that you're paying for a mortgage. No. The real value, the real thing to talk to yourself and ask yourself is if you're the rent that you're paying, is it greater than or less than the amount of money that you're going to be paying in interest and fees over time. So quick example, if you pay $1,000 a month in rent, probably a low end rent in today's market, but let's just use this for simple numbers, simple math. And you're going to pay $2,000 a month to own a home. And you decide to pay $2,000 and you're comparing this cost of living with a cost to own a home that would cost you $2,000 a month. Keep in mind, $2,000 a month in a mortgage includes the amount that you're going to be paying for interest. But you also have to include the amount that you're going to pay for other fees, such as property taxes, etc. Keeping in mind that if you take a 30-year mortgage and you pay consistently over those 30 years, like a lot of people do, and don't do anything fancy, right? Don't take out any equity in the home, but at the same time, you're not really paying off any extra on your mortgage, things like that. Effectively, what you're doing is you're doubling the amount of your mortgage. So a $200,000 mortgage turns into $400,000 worth of payments by you because you agreed to an interest rate, and the interest rate is paid off over time. And the longer the term of the mortgage, the more you're gonna pay in interest. So in that sense, you threw away $200,000. That money goes to the bank. We're not even going to include property taxes in this example, but that money goes to the bank. That same $200,000 you could have been spending on renting, for example, and you could have split that extra $200,000 that you're paying, and you could have taken that $200,000 that you paid for in principal and put that into an S&P 500 index fund and made a bigger return on your investment than the amount that you would have gotten back if your home doubled or even tripled. So in that instance, it doesn't make any sense to own a home versus renting. Where it makes sense for a lot of people is if you choose to have a shorter term. In other words, pay higher up front so you're not paying longer over time. A 15-year mortgage term, 10-year mortgage term, anywhere where you're paying more monthly versus paying less for a longer period of time. But even in those instances, if you're not going to be living at your place of residence for a long period of time, it still might not make sense. The reason for this is that most mortgage interest is being deducted at the beginning of the mortgage. So if you're planning to stay a shorter term in your mortgage, having a mortgage is just not going to make as much sense as renting for that period of time. So if you got any value out of this video, guys, be sure to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell. This is Derek West for Finance Squared. Be sure to check out some of the videos you see on the screen right now. I'll catch up with you guys a little bit later. Let me know what you think in the comments down below on when it's right to rent versus when to own. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.